Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Black Rob, otherwise known as Robert Ross. He was somebody that, he was a rapper, renowned rapper, I should say, and he died on April 17, 2021 due to kidney failure / kidney disease. And this is somebody, when we look at, it's just terrible. He was like 51 years old when he passed away. First thing I want to state, though, is I want to offer my condolences and prayers to the close friends and family members of Black Rob, and may he be in a better place at this point in time. I'm going to talk about some transits and natal placements that may have been tied into his passing. Now, the thing about it is that you're talking about the kidneys and astrology. I noticed that I want to state is that I don't have a time of birth for him, so I had to improvise once again and do a solar / sunrise chart in which I put the sun at the same point as the ascendant. Now, based on the solar sunrise chart, he did have transit Pluto in the 7th house, and you may wonder, well, what does that have any significance? How could that correlate with death due to the kidney disease? Well, the thing about it is, that Pluto is associated with death. Now, all the houses in astrology do correspond anatomically with certain body parts. The 7th house can be associated with the kidneys. So you have transit Pluto in the 7th house. Sometimes that can manifest in the death through something with the kidneys. And the thing about it too, I notice as well, though it's generational, he has Uranus at 0 degrees Libra in his chart. And when you look at 0 degrees is a critical degree in astrology, and Libra is associated with kidneys. In the solar sunrise chart, it also is conjunct his 4th house cusp, which 4th house in astrology is associated with the end of life. And also too, he does have Jupiter also conjoins that Uranus. So as I've spoken about in previous videos, Jupiter could be paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. In this case, it may have expanded in enlarging perhaps those issues that could be very unusual, very unexpected with the kidneys. So it's also and also I noticed he does have Pluto, which is not far from the 4th house cusp in the solar / sunrise chart. So you're talking about the 4th house is connected with the end of life, and Pluto, it makes me think it may have manifested maybe in maybe that end of life ending, maybe that period, that latter part of life coming to an end sooner, sadly, as opposed to later. It can also be, when I look at this as well, another thing that I noticed too is that he had transit North Node was not far from his natal Venus. Now, it's not as far as a conjunction goes, as far as transit orbs go, but even when you're talking about even like around 6 degrees, a transit in conjunction to a natal planet, I don't think we can definitively say that that natal planet doesn't feel any vibration from the transit planet. And when you have, you're talking about transits that involve the North Node, they could reflect issues that one may have to address or confront. When it's close to Venus, Venus is associated with kidney issues. It is in with the kidneys. It is in Mercurial Gemini. Another thing too, I notice as well is that he does have what I should have stated earlier is that he does have the Sun in Cancer based on what I saw on Wikipedia. July 12th, 1969, and his moon is in Gemini or Cancer, depending on birth time. The solar / sunrise time puts the moon in Gemini. The thing is, if that were, if it is the case that his moon is in Gemini, perhaps the moon, the Sun in Cancer, moon in Gemini combination may have manifested in, well, with the Sun in Cancer being very dedicated and devoted and showing tenacity, and then the moon in Gemini, something that involves something with words and writing. I don't know if he was actually a songwriter, but especially if his moon was in Gemini, it would not surprise me if he actually did a lot of the, or at least some of the writing for his own music. Now, another thing what I'm looking at as well is that we look at Jupiter being at 29. Appears to be at 29 degrees. I don't know if I'm reading it right. It's either 29 or 28 degrees. If it's at 29 degrees in Virgo, I mean, that's a critical or crisis degree. Jupiter can be associated with obesity. I don't know if he was really heavy or not, but it's also, Jupiter is also connected with the liver, the pancreas, so sciatic nerves. So it wouldn't surprise me if he may have had some issues that may have been connected with that as well. And the thing about it too is that looking at his chart, I also noticed that looking at the ruler of the sixth house in the solar sunrise chart, which is I'm sorry, the sign on the cusp of the sixth house is Sagittarius. The ruler of that is Jupiter, and that conjoins the Uranus in Libra. So that could be another indicator of a health-related issue that can deal with. It could be erratic or sporadic issues with the kidneys. Uranus, of course, is connected. Things that are erratic and sporadic and unpredictable. And another thing as well, looking at now in this solar in the, what I'm looking at in this chart, the solar slash sunrise chart. Well, he also had at this time, it appears that transit Venus in Taurus was not far from his natal Saturn, and when in at least fairly close proximity to it. And Venus again can be connected with the kidneys, and Saturn can be connected with some chronic debilitations. Being in Taurus, this may have manifested in rather persistent ones, sadly. And you also had transit Uranus not far from the natal Saturn, so that could give unpredictability in something connected with a chronic illness or chronic debilitation. He was also going through his Chiron return at the time. And another thing I noticed too is that his south node is conjunct his Pluto in his natal chart. Now, the thing about this is the south node. I would say, definitely that the south node can affect the planet. If you have it, say natally, you have the south node conjunct the planet, it could affect that energy of that planet adversely. And the thing is, Pluto is associated with death, and it could, perhaps this might have limited, maybe his years. I'm wondering if, to some degree, um, or it shows that there's something it could be adverse that would be associated with his death. And the thing about this too, as well, looking at this, he does have Mars conjunct Neptune in his chart, and when you have Mars conjunct Neptune, I mean, sometimes I would say this could be expressed in some, it may be weakened energy, dissolving and dissipation of one's energy. Mars in Sagittarius, I mean, Mars Sag could be issues, physical related issues, again with the liver or the sciatic nerve. I would, and it can be, or something with the hips. Uh, And again, it could also having Neptune conjunct Mars could add weakness with this, or it could just dissolve and dissipate energy just in general. Hold on a moment, people. And I noticed too that the fourth in the solar slash sunrise chart, it's also um, Vir- um, Virgo at 29 degrees on that fourth house cusp would make it, at the anaretic degree, at the end of life. And Virgo, of course, could be very, anxious, worrisome energy, and it puts the midheaven at 29 degrees Pisces. And of course, Pisces could be associated with poetry, dancing. I don't know if he hits at all what he did when he did his music. Um, but it can be, and also Pisces could be about dreams. I would say the attainment of dreams in one's career. Remember that 29 degrees could also reflect the full culmination in energy of a sign. So it's something where maybe maybe for him this manifested in being able to do something where, in filmography and with his music, with the rapping, of course, could be poetry. You have a lot of rhyming words in it. And I'm looking now too, he also had transit Neptune not far from his natal north node at the time of his passing. It looks like it makes a conjunction to it. So sometimes when you're talking about, transit like that, the North Node, when it's involved in transit again, can manifest and be expressed in issues one may have to confront and address. And maybe in this case, it was some issues that were, being in Neptune can be connected with weakness in general, in lethargy, and can be issues. I mean, you're looking at this Neptune, of course, is just a planet that, that again, being associated with weakness. I don't think he had any issues that were Neptune related as far as alcohol or drugs, or, I mean, Neptune is also connected with the feet, the toes, but also the immune system. There may have been something with the immune system. I'm wondering that might have been going on that might have diminished the ability to combat or deal with the kidney uh, situation that he was going through, unfortunately. And just looking to see if there's anything else at this time that might have played, some role, perhaps in his passing. But he just it's just it's just a terrible, something very, tragic and traumatic, somebody to pass away at such a relatively young age. And it's just sad when we have to hear about about these things. Another thing that I noticed though too, that I wanted to state, is that he also has, his natal Venus in Gemini opposes his Neptune. And the thing about this is that I'm wondering if this might have played some role in having some weakness that can be associated with the kidneys. And then Mars being up, also his natal Mars is opposing his natal Venus, so maybe there were difficulties in trying to combat, um, that the issues with the kidneys, and trying to combat it with a lot of enthusiasm and exuberance and optimism, because Mars being opposite his natal Venus, it's far away, and maybe it was hard to get that energy for him to be able to do that. I'm not saying he wasn't a fighter. I'm sure he did everything he could to try to prolong a possible death due to this debilitating illness, but it still could have indicated that he was having difficulty, maybe at times, finding that energy to actually deal with what was happening. So anyway, people, That'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.